Hey, welcome to A Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall. How you doing, Marshall?
I'm doing great. How are you, Scott?
Doing great. This is our very first episode with Kerncast. We've been doing a podcast for a couple of months now, but this is our very first time on kerncast.com. We're so excited that you joined with us today. What do we do here, Marshall?
Well, my goal is to talk about things that people might think about but don't normally talk about, and get people thinking about them and maybe talking about them, because if we think and talk about a lot of these ideas that you and I are going to discuss, I think it'll make society better. And I know it's quite a lofty goal, but as Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living, right?
Yep.
So we're going to be doing a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of religion, a little bit of current events, and the goal is to get you people out there thinking and talking about things that are far above and beyond just the weather.
That's right.
So
what makes this
go.
show a little bit unique is that I'm a pastor at New Life Church, and my friend here, Marshall, my friend from high school of over, we're not going to say how many years, but is...
Well, I'm an atheist.
An atheist. So
Yeah.
a pastor and an atheist together on a podcast discussing politics, religion, current events, whatnot, and hopefully we've yet to break into a fist fight yet. But that's what we're doing. So we want you to join in on the conversation. You can comment right there where you're watching on kerncast.com live, right? Or you can also email us at avalidanswer@gmail.com. So Marshall, what are we going to tackle today?
Well, the topic that we decided on is going to be morality. And I think you mentioned something called absolute good.
Absolute morality. As a pastor, as a believer in God, I believe that there is an absolute morality that God has laid down, and I believe that adhering to that absolute morality is beneficial for society.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't think it exists. No such thing. So how do you want to start? I mean, what do you mean by absolute?
By absolute, I mean that there is something that is unchangeable by the thoughts of man. That if morality is not absolute, if it's relative, then it really has no meaning at all. Morality has no meaning. It's just an opinion. And why should we care about morality? I remember in high school we were reading, I didn't appreciate the book all that much at the time when we were in English class, but we were reading, what was it? The Captain on the Ghost and the, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the book, but
well, we read The Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Yeah, there was that. No, it was another one. I can't think of the name of the book right now, but basically there was a evil captain on the boat called the Ghost, and
I think I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the name of the book.
So somebody comment in there and try to remind us what the name of that book is. But basically, the captain of the boat believed that
Jack London. I know what you're talking about.
Yes,
like
I believe
Jack
so.
London
I think it's a Jack London book.
Yeah.
And I can't think of the name of it right now. I wanted to make a movie out of it when I was in high school because I had it visualized in my head where this young rich guy gets in a boat accident, gets picked up and is taken out to the Pacific Ocean. And the captain's like, "No, you got to become a man. I'm going to keep you on board this boat." And they have philosophical talks because the captain is really educated, which is
unusual
for sailors. And he found his pet stowaway basically as a nice little pet to talk philosophy with. But he said that why is there any morality? Why he had that discussion of like, if there is no absolute morality, why does it matter what I do? Who's to stop me from doing anything? And ultimately, without an absolute morality, without something that is set in stone that says you cannot violate this, then at some point some person can just eventually say, we'll violate that. Because there's nothing, there's no belief in any higher power that stops them. And I believe a belief in a higher power, and a higher power that lays down an absolute morality that if you believe in that higher power you must follow, is like a self-preventing way of being moral.
I like to use the term objective. Do you think the objective would be a correct word to use? Objective morality?
I guess, yeah, because it's objective truth and
meaning well, for me, let's talk about objective for a minute. I use the term objective morality or objective truth or objective reality, and for me, something that is objective is something that is beyond dispute. Now, that doesn't mean there's not one or two crazy people out there that will dispute it, but it's really something that no matter where you are in time or place on the earth, you can look at this and everybody is going to agree with you that this is so. For example, the length of the day is 24 hours. Now, I can divide it up by hundreds. I can have 100 hours in a day if I want, what have you. I can call an hour anything I want. I can call it by any other name. But regardless, the same quantity of time passes each day. The fact that the moon revolves around the earth is also an objective fact, and the earth around the sun and so on. These are objective facts, and no sane or rational person can argue with them.
Okay.
But there are a lot of things, however, out there that are subjective. And I am of the belief that morals are one of those things. Morals are subjective because there is no objective thing that we can observe where all humans throughout all history, all time, around the entire globe, can look at it and say, this is right and this is wrong. Now, I will grant to you, you'll get broad agreement. Most humans will say something like, theft is wrong, rape and murder are wrong, these certain things are bad,
Why?
We should not do them. And usually that's grounded in empathy, and it's grounded in order, the idea that society has to maintain order.
Why?
So I'm not going to say that morals don't exist. What do you mean, why?
Why does society have to maintain order?
Well, because, first of all, we're tribal, and we can't achieve progress without some kind of order. So the tribe is going to enforce some kind of order in order to maintain or promote progress. And I think we see this whether it's a group of animals, even a herd of animals. There's always some kind of order. There's some kind of leader. There's some kind of a routine. In the morning we go to the watering hole. In the afternoon we graze on the plain. In the evening we sleep. And we herd together and we don't stray off on our own. There's order and all of that. And the same thing for humans, right? We have to have rules. Otherwise we just have chaos. And I believe it's hardwired into us to follow rules. We are naturally obedient. We naturally seek the approval of others. And so morality does exist, but I think it exists at a tribal level or a social level or at a familial level, at the level of your family. And I think it's fluid. I think it's dynamic. It's constantly changing. That's why it's okay. You can have a rule that says you can't kill, but you can kill if it's wartime, or you can kill in self-defense. But also there's this rule you can't kill. So we're constantly contradicting ourselves, but there are exceptions and so on. But there is no objective source for any of that. Even if I were to concede that God is real and the Bible was a source of morality, even the Bible is subjectively interpreted. Unlike the idea of a 24-hour day where the length of time is the same to every observer, the Bible is certainly very subjective or subjectively interpreted. So given that, I think that morals exist, but they're subjective.
So I come from the perspective that there are going to be some absolute morals, and I believe that it's something like you were talking about how there's just this internal thing. I believe that internal thing that brings us, as you were talking about, like we can all kind of agree that, hey, there's an empathy, there's this that something inside of us says this is wrong. I believe that something inside of us is something that was created inside of us by our Creator. That there is that hole that we are missing, that we are constantly, and every time we try to fill that hole with anything else, we keep coming up empty. And when we find fulfillment with our Creator, and then find the morality that He has set down, and we live by that morality, I believe we find that fulfillment that really doesn't get found anywhere else because of how we were created by our Creator.
Yeah, I think it's wired into us. I think it's coded in our DNA. It's natural for us to be empathetic and, like I said, to want to follow rules, to want to contribute, to construct, to build, to participate, to be part of the in crowd, to go with the flow. Those are all natural human instincts. But when it gets down to morality itself, when it comes time to take those instinctual compulsions, if you will, or those instincts, and distill them into rules and absolutes, I don't see that. I don't see that there is an objective source for that. I see that there's an internal source, but it's sort of a natural instinct. And I don't. Do you think an objective source is necessary? For absolute morality?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you think an objective source? Do you think absolute morality is a necessity for society?
No.
Why not?
Because we don't have it yet. We have society. Here we are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I agree
but
with
societies
you
decay and fall all the time.
Yeah, they do. Mm-hmm.
Because of the fluctuating morality. What if there was a society that did not fluctuate its morality?
First of all, I don't know that has ever existed. All societies rise and fall, and I don't know that morals are the cause of a collapse of a civilization. They can be part of it, but morals change all the time. Morals are fluid. They change from when you're young to when you're growing up. They are different when you're single versus when you're married, and so on. People's morals are constantly fluctuating throughout their lives. We'd
but
like
I wouldn't.
to
I would
think
hold
that
on.
we're
But
morally consistent all of our lives, but that's not realistic.
No, but I think you're confusing morality. I think you're confusing morality and what's wrong and what's right between stages of life.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are certain things at a stage of life that at this age you shouldn't be doing, but then at this age you
Exactly.
should. But that's still consistent. That is still a consistent. You know, when you get to this age, this is what you should be doing. It's not like you get to that age and then it changed. It didn't change. You knew that growing up. You knew that was what the rules were for those
But what
ages.
those
so it stayed
rules are is
consistent.
very subjective, and it's different from societies to society.
Right, which is part of the reason why we have issues. A lot of the issues is that nobody agrees on what is moral. And I keep going back to why not? Why can you have a fully functioning society that will last without that society understanding that there is an absolute right and wrong?
No civilization in the history of humankind has ever lasted forever. We've had civilizations that have been around for many hundreds of years or even 1,000 years. You look at England, for example, has been around for a long time. How you define these things is also highly subjective. What is a civilization? Civilizations rise and fall all the time, but a lot of times the reasons why civilizations collapse isn't so much from moral as it is from economics, things like climate change.
Yeah, but come on, economics
changes.
is going to be coming from morals.
Oh, you'll have to explain that to me.
Because the economic choices are, if you were a moral nation, if you were a moral people, you would make moral economic decisions that wouldn't cause economic problems.
Okay, so let's say you're right. Let's say that, if we were all on the same page morally and we never turn the chapter, we stay on that page and we follow, let's say the 10 Commandments, whatever, or whatever it may be. Where do we get that from? From whence does that come? Where does it come from? Where's the objective source for that? Who gives me my morals then?
I believe the morals come from God.
Okay, but you and I would have I question whether or not God exists, obviously. I'm not a believer. But
we'll fix that.
We'll see, Scott. But how do we get everybody on the same page there? I mean, that's one of the issues I have with any kind of religion or any kind of God or deity is if there's a God out there that God is hiding or it's asleep or it's dead or non-existent. It's one of those. Because God does not appear to be an active participant in humanity's affairs. God does not come down and say, I want this person to be president and this is what the law is going to be and this is right and this is wrong. And,
what if he did?
That would change everything, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but what if he did?
Well, then I imagine we would have evidence, and that would change everything, now wouldn't it? I mean, yes, if I were offered indisputable proof that God exists, and God came down and was an active participant in our lives, and God came to me and said, this is what I want you to wear in the morning, and this is where I want you to work, and this is what well, yeah, absolutely.
Why do you have to wait until you have absolute evidence?
Well, because I don't want to make a mistake. And in the absence of evidence, I have to rely on my reason. And my reason has not, I don't have the evidence to inform my reason.
Right, you keep going back to evidence, and the idea being there has to be some sort of tangible, measurable.
Not necessarily, because
evidence.
I don't think even if God existed, it would be kind of hard to measure God, right? Because in order to measure something like water or coffee here, you need to identify the units.
Yeah.
And a liquid would be identified by volume, let's say, right, or even temperature. And what units do you use to measure God? You know, how do you weigh a God? Is God going to be weighed in pounds and stuff? So if there are no units, you can't
Depends
measure.
if you're in Europe or if you're in the United States.
The metric system, right? You cannot measure or evaluate scientifically a supernatural proposition. So if I say God exists, there's no way to really measure that.
So you've set yourself up to never believe in God, even if evidence existed, because now you're saying that evidence can't exist anyway.
Well, there's other kinds of evidence besides physical evidence. There's logical evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to come to me and say, God exists, here's God, here's the attributes of God, here's what God does, this, that, and the other thing, and you were to take God from this vague idea that there's some creator out there to the God of your particular faith, Christianity, and get very specific, and you were able to show me a chain of logic without any fallacies that goes from the vague idea that the universe may have been created by something supernatural, all the way down to, and that supernatural creator is the Christian God, and his name is Jehovah, Yahweh, what have you, and he really cares about you, and he really wants you to live with him in heaven forever and ever, and so on. If you could do that without committing a logical fallacy, I would consider that to be evidence. I would accept that.
What else do you measure in your life by that? Do you measure the love from your child by that?
Well, love from child, you have evidence because the child...
But not logical evidence. You can't... You're saying that there is an infallible logical chain that can be made about the love of your child to you, or the love of you to your child, that you can make an infallible logical chain that brings you all the way down to that. Or is it based on something else?
My children exist.
I know that. but I'm saying, does your love prove to me that your love for them exists in a logical way that cannot be fallible? Prove to me that your love for them exists.
I imagine if I feed them, I clothe them, and do other things for them, I'm demonstrating...
You do that for slaves, too.
Well...
You do that for prisoners.
Well...
Can you prove to me your love for your child in a logical way that cannot break any fallacies?
I guess I could have you come over and you could see me interact with my child.
And I guess you could come to my church and see me interact with God.
Uh-huh.
But that's not enough for you, so that's not enough for me. Is there a logical way that you can prove your love for your child? Or is there something outside of a logical fallacy that you would accept as proof for something that you cannot see?
No, I'm going to need a logic chain. I'm going to need it without fallacies.
But you accept other things.
Because once I say I'll lower my standard and accept your interactions with your God, then I'm going to have a Muslim friend come to me and say,
Where are they?
It's Allah. Well, maybe out there, but I'm speaking hypothetically here.
I'm right here.
I know you're here, Scott, and I appreciate that. But what I'm telling you is, if I lower my standard of evidence or my standard of proof, then what stops me from being susceptible to an imam or a rabbi or a Hindu, guru or what have you, or anybody from any other religion claiming that their God exists using the same standard of evidence? And the standard of evidence for God is very high because the stakes are very high.
In what way?
Well, because I'm going to have to live my life according to whatever that religion teaches. If I accept that religion as true.
And that's horrible?
True. Well, it is if it's false.
Why?
Well, let's say.
What is so horrible about living as a Christian that if it turned out to be false, you've completely thrown your life away?
Well, I might miss out on certain experiences. Like, if I'm Jewish, I can't have shellfish. If I'm a Muslim, I can't have ham, and certain things like that. And I know those sounds like very basic and shallow things, but I'm also tithing 10% of my income to the church, mind you. It depends on the denomination. I'm giving up my Sundays.
But don't you already, as an atheist, give to charitable donations anyway?
Occasionally I do, yes.
Okay, well then what's the difference? But
I get to pick. I get to give to the ones that I want to, and I don't give to a church because I don't have a church.
Right, but if you were in church and you believed it and you believed in what the church was doing, you naturally are going to give to them anyway. It's the same thing.
I can't make myself believe in order to, I can't fake belief.
No, I know that, but what I'm saying is that if you found and you said, I'm going to follow this religion, I'm going to choose to do this, you're trying to say that one of the things I'm missing out on is my money because I'm giving it to my church.
Sure.
And I'm saying I don't miss it Just like you don't miss what you give to charity because you believe in those charities, you don't miss the money. I don't miss what I give to the church because I believe in the church.
We're getting something of value for our money.
So that's not really an argument against it. I'm trying to say, what is so wrong about living your life in belief? Is it just the idea of what if I was wrong?
I think so. I think if the belief is false, then
what? What have you lost?
A lie is a lie, no matter how sweet it is. So if I don't want to live my life in a lie, then, maybe, it's subjective.
But if it cannot be proven as a lie, but it's close enough, if it's within a reasonable doubt.
Well, it can't be proven as truth.
Right, but I'm just saying, but if it's close enough, if it's within a reasonable doubt, if you can experience something, you trust the people around you that are experiencing this, and it might be a lie. I don't know. It might not be the truth, it might be a lie, but I'm going to follow it anyway.
Well,
why is that bad?
It's bad to be a theist, necessarily.
Why is it bad for you to be a theist?
Because if I don't believe it's true, I'd be living a lie. So I have to be persuaded that it's true. If I'm persuaded that it's true, then I think it's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Now, we can get into what ills and harms religion brings to society, and we can get into the whole thing, well, atheism is just as bad, what have you. Yep. And I don't want to go down that road. But for me...
Any movement can be hijacked by
absolutely, by bad actors. Yeah. Absolutely. So, for me, I simply reject the idea that a God exists because it hasn't been demonstrated to me with sufficient evidences to get my belief.
Say that again, because I don't think that's what you believe.
I reject the idea that a God exists because it has not been presented to me with sufficient evidence to convince me.
I believe what you mean to say is you have not been you are not convinced yet that God exists, because you're making a negative statement, which I think is fallible.
I'm not convinced yet.
Okay.
You could convince me. I could be persuaded.
Yeah.
If you bring the evidence, if you bring the facts, or if you bring the logic,
yep.
and I can't dispute it, then ultimately, of course, I'd accept it. And why wouldn't I accept it?
I'm just trying to clearly explain the difference between the logical fallacy of saying there is no God compared to I have not seen any proof of God. That seems like a very small difference, but it is a difference between being logically sound and being in a logical fallacy. Saying there is no God is being caught in a logical fallacy.
Now, why do you think that? I'm inclined to agree with you, but I want to know why you say that.
Because the main thing is that if you say there is no God, you are closing off. It's logical to say nothing has been proven to me that this exists.
Right, which is my position.
Which is your position.
Right.
But I wanted to clarify, a person who's holding a position saying, since nothing has been proven to me yet, therefore it cannot exist, is a logical jump that is a fallacy.
Well, I would agree. In philosophy, the person who makes the claim has the burden of proof.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of atheists out there, and shame on my fellow atheists who will say, I don't have to prove anything. I can run around and I can say, well, God doesn't exist, but I don't have to prove it. Well, no. It's not like that.
Yeah.
If you make the claim, you have to offer the proof, regardless of what position you have. So, as an atheist, and all atheism doesn't mean I believe in evolution, the Big Bang, this, that, and the other thing. It doesn't mean those things.
Yeah.
A lot of people ascribe to atheism ideas and beliefs that are not really part of atheism. All atheism is a rejection of the proposition that God exists because of a lack of evidence. And the individual's
How close is that to
evidence
agnosticism, though?
To what?
How close is that to agnosticism?
It's pretty close.
Truly, are you an atheist or are you an agnostic?
Well, I'm what they call I'm a number 6 on the Dawkins scale.
Oh, there's a scale now.
There's a scale of atheism from 1 to 7.
Is this like the 7 layers of hell? Or
No. There is a scale, and I think agnostic is 5. And number 1 is I'm 100% certain that God exists. Number 7 is I'm 100% certain no God exists.
Gotcha.
And number 5 is agnosticism, and number 6 is like a weak or de facto atheist. And what that says is I'm open to the idea that God exists, but I'm pretty skeptical. I'm almost 100% certain that there's not. And I'm fairly certain that there is no God of any religion. And you're an atheist in every other religion, by the way, Scott. You're a Hindu atheist, you're an Islamic atheist, and so on. I just go one God further than you. That's the only difference. And that's why we don't need to fight and argue, but we can certainly discuss it.
Yeah.
You know, it blows my mind, the idea that people, terminate friendships because of things like this, or they ostracize people from their families. Being an atheist is tough stuff. Because once you're an atheist, suddenly your job's in jeopardy. You wouldn't think it, right? And atheists are not a protected class. But people don't trust you. You know, they don't want you to marry their daughters or marry their sons or what have you. They don't want to hire you for jobs.
Are they killed anywhere in the world?
Yes, they are.
Where?
Well, certainly like in Saudi Arabia, for example, atheism is considered practically a terrorist act, and it is punishable by death. And there are several countries where that's still the case today. Mostly,
is Christianity the same?
What's that?
Is that the same for Christianity?
There are Christian churches in Saudi Arabia.
Secret churches?
No, there's like actual Catholic churches that I know for a fact. There are, I don't know how heavily they're regulated or monitored.
Yeah.
But there are churches, Christian churches, pretty much everywhere in the world. I don't think there's a country anywhere in the world where it's absolutely illegal to be a Christian,
China.
but you wouldn't want to be a Christian. Well, you can be a Christian in China too, and there's Christian churches all over China. In fact, China is
certain parts of China.
One of the places where Christianity is spreading. North Korea is probably the most dangerous place to be a Christian, because you are almost guaranteed to be persecuted.
I know that our particular denomination of the Foursquare Church has churches in countries that we cannot talk about, because if the church was discovered there, they would be persecuted.
And I think that's
they would be
terrible.
shut down.
I think that's a horrible thing. I condemn that. Even as an atheist, I don't think that's good or positive. I think people should be allowed to have their beliefs. They should be allowed to be open with their beliefs and to discuss them with one another. Let's get the ideas out in the open. Let's talk about the ideas. Let's have the ideas clash.
Ideas clash, but not people clash.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you and I kind of have worked out over the years. And that's why you and I can sit here and have this conversation, is because we know that it's our ideas that are clashing, and it's not Scott and Marshall that are clashing.
Here's the thing that again, why I really feel that this discussion and what we do is so important, is because out there, when you realize it's so easy to just get out on a computer and type up what you're saying on a forum, keyboard warrior, and get out there, or even getting on television, or getting up on a radio and getting in front of a mic and just being like, the other side is bad. The other side is evil. The other side, they just hate this. They just want to kill these people. And I'm not just talking atheists and Christians. I'm talking, Democrats and Republicans. I'm talking, the conservatives and liberals and all this kind of stuff where there's so much of an idea that the other side is evil. The other side is bad. I'm right. I'm good. The other side is wrong. They're bad and they're evil, and we need to stop them. And nobody actually listens to anybody. Nobody actually takes the time to listen to what's going on. And see, it's so easy for a Christian to sit down with you and have all these things they want to say to you to change your mind, instead of sitting here and listening to what you have to say and then discussing that. That a lot of times we just want to ambush atheists, or same thing. Atheists just want to ambush Christians, and Republicans want to ambush Democrats. But the idea is, I have my talking points. I know what I'm going to say. I've thought about what I'm going to say, and now I'm going to say it to this person. And I'm going to say it. They're going to talk, and as they're talking, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say next, and then I'm going to say it, and then there really is no discussion. You already have a fixed belief about the other person. You believe that other person is wrong. You believe that other person is evil, and it's easy to just throw the person aside and make fun of them and put them off. But what I like about what you and I are doing, again, we're friends. Been friends since high school. You can believe what you believe about Christianity. You can believe what you believe about conservatives. You can believe what you believe about Republicans. Not that I'm one, but I'm just saying, you can believe what you believe about that other side. And you can get on your keyboard and be a keyboard warrior and say all those things. Yeah. But when you're sitting next to me right now, like we are right now, face to face, it's difficult to say those things about me. It's difficult to say those things about atheists, about you. And when I realize every time I'm thinking about those things that are out there, and I'm thinking about, well, the atheists are this and liberals are that way, I think, well, no, my Marshall's not that way. And it makes me have to stop and think about what the belief is, not about what my belief is, but to think about what your belief is and how I'm coming across to you. And that's what I feel that this society is missing. That's why I feel so strongly about what we're doing here and getting this out to as many ears as possible, because I believe this type of discussion can change the world. I think there's too much of a one-sided discussion and a one-sided, I have what I'm going to say. Yeah. Diatribe. That's a word I'm not familiar with. I've heard it, but what does it mean?
Well, gosh, I hope I'm right this time. I was wrong about, fortnight?
Yeah.
It's 2 weeks. I thought it was 20 days. But I believe diatribe means it's a conversation where one person speaks or two people speak, but the other side doesn't hear. And you're not offering conversation for the other side to really hear. You're really just speaking to the choir, or you're speaking for your own sake, and you're not really interested in what the other person has to say. And
I believe that there's times for that type of speaking. I believe like a school setting or a church setting is a time for preaching. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's one person who's teaching a lesson and everybody is there because they want to know more about that and they trust the person giving the information. We may not believe or trust each other. I don't want to say that word the wrong way, but I may not know that you know what you're talking about. So I may not be as open to hear what you're saying, or just taking it at face value without examining it myself. And the same thing, what I'm saying, you may not just simply say, well, yep, I guess he's right. You know, you're going to challenge it, and we're going to challenge each other. I think there is time, not for diatribe, but I think there is time where you are preaching to the choir because the choir is there to learn more about what, more about what, but I don't believe that's what we need. I believe we need that in an education setting, but not in a public outset. I believe a public setting, going out to the airwaves, going out to the public, I believe we need more listening and more, hearing what the other person, dialogue.
Yeah.
But
listening is, we're given 2 ears and one mouth, so you can listen more than we speak, right?
Yeah, God created us that way. It's really cool, huh?
Chinese proverb. You got me. But anyway, I guess I'm a believer now. Where do I convert? Now I forgot what I was going to say because we made a joke, but I was going to say this. When you go at a person's core beliefs, when you discuss a person's core beliefs, that's very hard for a lot of people. A lot of people don't have the capability to handle criticism of their core beliefs, and they have a tendency to internalize their core beliefs. For example, if I say, Christians are just really dumb people, I can't believe that, they Christian so much. Christianing is dumb.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, wait, sorry.
And then when that happens, the Christian is hearing this and they become very offended. And they become very upset because what you're actually doing is saying that you're dumb, or at least that's how they're internalizing it.
Yeah.
And the same for atheists. Atheists are just ridiculous. They're amoral. They eat babies and all of these other things.
I got on a conversation with somebody one time because they posted, NRA has blood on their hands and gun owners. I'm like, and I knew them. And I said,
there's a logical fallacy.
Right. And I knew them and they knew me. And I responded to them and say, are you saying I have blood on my hands as a gun owner?
Right.
Is that what you're saying about me? You know me. Is that what you're saying? Well, no, not about you. Okay. Well, then there's another human being on the other end of that that's the same way. Just because you don't know them doesn't mean they're not a human being who you should consider.
Right.
Maybe your, rhetoric. I hate rhetoric.
Well, there's a time and a place, and you have to be careful when you're dealing with people's core beliefs. And you have to be careful how you address those beliefs. And a lot of times when you attack a person's core belief head on, so if I attack your Christianity head on, and I'm just, there's no God, Scott, there's no such thing, God is dead, what have you, the only thing I'm actually going to do is reinforce your belief. And likewise, if you come at me as, there is no such thing as no God, no matter how hard you come at me with that, the only thing you're likely to do is actually reinforce my non-belief. So that's not the way you convert people. Conversion actually kind of occurs in the heart. It doesn't occur necessarily up here. And,
I'm sorry.
Right? Isn't
I'm
that
sorry.
nuts, right?
Can the atheist say that again?
Right. People change their mind and they make a lot of big decisions kind of in their gut or their heart rather than up here, which is, a sad thing for me to think about and acknowledge. But you look at all the commercial advertising on TV and look at our culture and our civilization, it's all feelings-based. And people make feelings-based decisions all the time. Now, I don't think that's the optimal way to be. So even though that's true and that's real, I'm not necessarily subscribing to it and saying this is how we should all be and that this is okay. I'd like for us to kind of bring the decision making from here to up here. And that's why we're having this conversation. That's why the ideas are clashing out here on this table, because we want to move, the idea Christian versus atheist, and, you don't have any morals and only I have morals. We want to take that from here in the gut, where it's very reactionary, and move it up here to, well, why do we think that? Which kind of brings us back to the issue of morals, which is, I agree morals exist, but I think they're tribal, they're, fluid. And you're telling me that, absolute and objective morals exist, and I don't see evidence for those.
I believe the evidence is my life.
Well, that's great, but your life is subjectively interpreted.
Yeah, but I believe that's why I come back to that's why testimony is always the most important thing for the life of a believer. Is what is your life saying? If someone who doesn't believe looks at your life, what are they going to say about what you believe? And I believe that when we choose to follow God and we live the way that we're supposed to, even though we're human, we're going to make mistakes, but then we fess up to those mistakes and we move forward. I believe my life should speak of the existence of God to you. Mm-hmm. And whether or not that's enough to change your mind, I'm hoping it changes your heart. Mm-hmm. Because that's where God wants. That's where the hole that you have that wants God, that's where it exists. Mm-hmm.
Do you think I'm an immoral person? Do you think I live my life without any morals?
I think everybody's immoral. Mm-hmm. I believe, even though I believe in the existence of God, and I believe that He has His laws, I also know that I am not capable of following them. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of seems like, why should you say the belief in morals at all? Because just because I can't follow them, just because I can't hit them all, doesn't mean that it just makes me human, and I make the mistake. But I know that when I make that mistake, I know that I need to seek forgiveness, and I need forgiveness. So I think you act morally. I think, you know what I mean? I don't mean like act as in pretend. I think you carry out your life.
Yeah, if somebody, drops $1 on the ground, I'm going to, hey, mister, you dropped your dollar. I'm not going to steal something. I haven't lived a perfect life. But certainly I'm a much better person than I was when I was younger.
But I believe there is more at stake than how you act right now. I believe there's more at stake with everybody. That's why I've chosen, and I mean, I want to say chosen. I've been called to be a pastor, been called by God to be a pastor, and I've elected to accept that call, and I've chosen to accept that call because I believe there is a necessity for people to understand their sinfulness and to find salvation and forgiveness through Christ. Mm-hmm. And I believe that change of heart is what's going to change society. If enough people go back to that belief, if enough people come back to that change of heart, I believe it will change society for better, because there will be that many people believing in God and His morality.
Has that society ever existed? Has a society like that ever existed ever?
I don't know, but it doesn't mean we can't try, right?
That's a great response, but I don't think it's ever existed, and I kind of doubt that it ever will.
I think because of our humanity and because of where we are, we're living in a sinful state, we're living in a sinful world, it cannot ever exist here. But I believe it will exist I believe there is an afterlife where that will exist that I would love for you to be part of.
I would love to be part of it if it were real.
Yep.
But I just simply don't believe that it exists. Now, we could look for the answers in a 2,000 to 2,600 year old holy text, or we could look for the answers in different ways. And one of the ways that we could do this is, you can use science to discern things. Now, science isn't necessarily a source for morality.
No, science is never going to do anything for your heart.
No, that's okay, because frankly, the heart's kind of defective. I have high blood pressure, by the way, but I'm kidding. But the heart is not always the optimal way to make decisions. I think we need to make more decisions up here. And I think that if we use the tools of reason and logic and science, we can elevate some of our decision making in our society from here to here.
And I believe that this is so limited, that our mind is so limited. I would rather be filled.
Why isn't this limited?
Hold on, no, it is. But I'd rather be filled in the heart by a God who knows more than this, and let Him speak into my heart, because He knows more than I ever could.
Okay. The problem is, you've got 7 billion people in the world, and God is speaking into all of their hearts in different languages, and they're all coming up with different conclusions. So how do you even know? Because if morals are how we know, I don't know. The morals are so subjective. They're so varied everywhere around the world.
God says you will know His people by their love.
Okay, but, today I was downtown with a friend of mine.
You weren't at church today?
Right.
It's Sunday.
And the Sikhs had a booth where they were offering free food downtown at a local park, mostly for the homeless.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to kind of check it out. And I walked up there and said, "Can I give you guys a donation?" And they're like, "No, we don't have anybody here to take the donation," because I didn't have cash. I had plastic. Been very happy to make a donation, but I had to do it with my card.
That's why they need Square.
Right? Right? I thought they might have it. But they weren't selling anything. They were giving away food, and they gave me a little plate of rice and curry or something was on top of it, like a beautiful sauce, and it was very delicious. And I ate that, and it was intended for the homeless, but they clearly had plenty to give away. And they didn't ask me anything. They didn't try to convert me. They simply were doing a good deed.
Yep.
But they don't believe in the same God that you believe in. So if I'm to measure whether or not God exists from, things that come from the heart, I should be converting to Sikhism right now.
Okay.
So you're okay with that? You'd rather I be a Sikh than an atheist?
Yes, because I would rather you be seeking for God. And I didn't mean that in a... I did not mean the pun.
Mean it as a pun.
I didn't mean it as a pun until I said
that.
it. But I would rather you be seeking for God than simply saying, I need more proof. I need more proof. I need more proof. I need more proof. You'll just be. It's the person who said, I will not move forward until I have all of the evidence. And those are the people who get left behind.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know, because maybe if God exists and God gave me this logical brain, thank God I'm an atheist, right? God made me an atheist. Maybe He created me this way because the way to God for some people isn't through here, but through here. And there are some people who have come to God in a way through their own logic. You look at the Spinoza was, I think, a 17th century philosopher, a Spanish name, but I think he was Dutch. The Netherlands was once part of Spain.
And I wish I knew the guy's name, but the writer of Evidence That Demands a Verdict, they made a movie about him recently, but just the idea that he went out and looked for forensic evidence to prove that God didn't exist and found enough forensic evidence to change his mind.
Well, there you go. So it's possible that, certainly my eyes are open and I'm looking for evidence. I'm interested in what people have to say, not just Christians. I've got a friend who's a Hare Krishna, and it's very interesting to talk to him on occasion. And I have friends who are Sikhs and so on and so forth. And it's good to hear what these people have to say. But for me, the search for God is from looking at the universe and looking at the microverse and the world around us. I don't know that I'll ever find anything that I can say that's God. I don't know that I'll ever come to belief. But that doesn't mean that my search will never end, because I'm always going to be open to new evidence. I'm always going to be looking, and so on. But
that's good to hear.
So far, I have not been presented with evidence that says, "Hey, this God exists." Whether it's Krishna from the Hare Krishnas, or Buddha, which we can argue, whether or not Buddha is considered a God, or Allah, or the God of the Christians. That has not yet been presented to me in a way that I can accept it.
Well, I'll keep trying. That's why I'm here. Well, hey, this has been our very first episode. We've been going for a little bit, but I just realized that I had my screen on the iPad wrong, and I did not notice. I thought there were no comments, but there were some comments. Jesse Husso.
Hey, Jesse, good to
Marshall.
Good to hear from you. Thank you.
Brad Martin. Hey, thank you for enjoying the show. Stephen Sullivan. We're excited as well for being part of the show and see where this is going. And anybody else who wants to join in on the conversation in our next show, we're going to be trying to do this. We're going to do this again next Sunday at 5 o'clock right here at kerncast.com. And if you want to get a hold of us during the week, email us at avalidanswer@gmail.com. Ask us what you have. Ask us why we call it a valid answer. Send those letters in that says, Scott, you should have said this to Marshall. Marshall, you should have said this when Scott said that. We'll have a little section where we'll read those called "You Should Have Said."
Right.
Should have, could have said.
And we really hope that our discussion inspires you to have discussions. I'm sure you got some friends out there. You can also discuss with us online or even email us if you have questions. If you want to have a philosophical discussions, one of us will probably reply. And again, our goal with this program is to kind of raise the bar in discussion above just the weather. I want people to think about these ideas, because if you start moving, I feel if you start moving the conversation from just here and you bring it up here, I think we could build a better community and a better society for all.
But first thing you got to do is you got to listen. 2
Yes,
ears, one mouth. God made you that way.
All right.
All right.
You get that one, Scott.
I'll get that one.
Point for Scott.
Point for Scott. There we go. Not that we're keeping score. All right. Until next time, this has been A Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall, or with Marshall and Scott. We'll see how that goes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.